and welcome to BTS, that's behind the scenes. I'm Sakshi Batra and you're watching this special offering on Business Today TV. And this is a show where we share a sneak peek into the latest issue of the Business Today magazine with all our viewers. Now, joining in on the show with me, I have Alokesh Bhattacharya, managing editor of the Business Today magazine. Prerena Lidhoo joins in, special correspondent. Rachna Dhanrajani also joins us. She's a technology reporter with us on Business Today. Well, thank you so much to all of you for taking the time out for this discussion. And now to reveal the first look to all our viewers, this is an issue which is also all about the biggest buzzword of late, AI, that's artificial intelligence. And what we are going to find out in this edition is that whether artificial intelligence is a friend or a foe. Rachna Dhanrajani has written the opening essay. I want to start off with you. We're talking about the rise of machines. The debate still rages on whether AI is really good or bad. But the biggest fear among us humans is that how will this rise of machines really affect us? The fears of job losses is rising way too much. What have you really found in your interactions with various sectors? Is there really more fear or more excitement about AI?
It's really not artificial intelligence and automation that's a new story, but it's the rise of generative tools that has sort of created this fear all around the world of job losses. Um, in the duration of writing this piece, we realized that sure, there is a lot of fear amongst people, especially on a very junior level. People are afraid, but more than fear of job loss, it's fear of the unknown. Right now, nobody really knows till what extent can GPT tools go with Chat GPT, which was GPT 3.5, we saw that it could take the competitive exams just like we humans can, but it would still score pretty averagely. But with GPT-4 that was launched in March this year, we saw that the generative tool scores 90% better than any other human can on these tests. And these are most competitive tests of the world. These are SATs and law entrance and medical entrance exams. So that's where the fear sort of begins. Now there was also another instance of over 1,000 technology experts, including Elon Musk, who's been a supporter of artificial intelligence, cautioning the world. And in fact, they wrote an open letter saying that for now, all the technological progress with generative pre-trained transformer tools, the GPT tools, should be stopped till we know what could be the extent of this. So more than fear of job losses, it's the fear of the unknown as to what are we stepping into. Will we find ourselves in a position where technology has advanced so much that we can't really control it? That's really the fear right now. That obviously means there's a lot of with the advancement there'll be a lot of ease for companies, because all the redundant jobs, all the jobs that do not require a complex skill, which can easily be done by a bot or an AI tool. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they will opt for it. In fact, when I spoke to TCS's Krishnan Ramanujan, he called it a very boring story. He said that when you say that jobs will be replaced by AI and automotive tools, that's an old and boring story, because that's what happened during the dot com boom. People said that now that the computers are here, humans will be redundant, but that will never be the case. I also happened to speak to an educator, and she was of the belief that sure, there will be skills that a computer can do, a bot can do, but that doesn't mean that they'll be replacing it. And for us humans, us mortals, to hold on to our jobs, all we have to do is keep on upskilling and make ourselves indispensable.
That's absolutely right. Let me just take this question further across to Prerna, who's also found out how AI is actually disrupting the automotive space right there. How do you assess the way the traditional automotive companies have been working with? How are they accepting this new boom of AI?
Thanks for having me, Sakshi. Yeah, auto is one of the industries that we covered as a part of this package, and it's really interesting because I cited an example of a movie, Batman Begins, where the Batmobile, it's sort of voice controlled. It's doing a lot of functions that sci-fi movies used to show back in the day. But today, it's not science fiction anymore. It's already a reality in MG and Mercedes. We can control the car remotely to an extent. Obviously, we can't fly them as yet, but that day is not far, maybe. But the point that a lot of companies need to understand is that using technology as a business and using technology outside for the product is are two very different things. So how AI will differentiate, and the companies that will adopt AI and technology in the business side of things, supply chain management, inventory management, assessing driver behavior behind the scenes, not just the product itself, looking at the supply chain issues, solving supply chain issues through AI. I think those are the companies that will sort of take a lead. And if we look at jobs in that sense, then again, that is another conundrum that industry players accept, that while there will be jobs that will be created, the old jobs will require a lot of reskilling, like Rachna said. So I think it's similar to many industries in that sense.
Right. Prerna, but are there the fears of job losses even in the auto space? What have you heard from the companies?
Yeah, so companies, some amount of it. So auto industry right now is going through a very interesting phase when it comes to the fuel choice of the company, or as an industry where we're moving towards alternative fuels. That is one kind of disruption that is happening. Then BS6 is another kind of cleaner emissions kind of disruption that we're happening. So obviously a factory is not built every day. So they will have to look 10 years into the future and figure out whether AI is going to be big enough, because these are the kind of churns that are already going around in the auto industry. So obviously the amount of robotics and machine learning that they need on the shop floor, that is obviously going to take away a lot of clerical kind of jobs. That is what people said, and people will also all be, they would require a lot of reskilling. Like for example, there are very small chips that are even today assembled by hand, so that is more precision will be required. Even the robotics will go towards that direction. So those kind of jobs are likely to be replaced for now. But as I spoke to a number of global as well as Indian analysts and companies, I got a sense that AI cannot, even when we talk of autonomous level, full autonomous self-driving vehicles, it's very difficult because the technology is not there yet. For example, if I learn to drive in Mumbai, I will be able to drive in pretty much every city of the world, but that's not true with autonomous cars. If you train them in a Mumbai kind of environment, they might not be able to drive in Goa, because that is not they're not that intelligent yet. So I think that is still a long way for them in terms of, I don't see drivers being replaced, for example, by autonomous vehicles at this point. And a lot of estimates suggest that we're still around 10, 15 years, like a decade away from that kind of disruption. Otherwise, like the smaller disruption will continue in the shop floor and
Right,
supply.
Prerna. But I really have have my doubts, Prerna, that despite having driven in Mumbai lanes, whether you will be able to show your driving skills here in Noida, it's even worse, right? Yeah. But we'll talk about that some other time. But there's something very interesting also, in this issue, apart from the deep dive that we have done in the world of AI, and that is on the quarterly BTC for Business Confidence Survey that Alokesh you've done. Help our viewers understand what are the key trends for the latest quarter under review, on the growth prospects and on the economic outlook.
Yeah, thanks, Sakshi. Really, the sentiment is not so nice. And I've been saying this for the last 2 or 3 quarters whenever we've been having this discussion, Sakshi, because
Yes.
we sort of the business sentiment saw a peak in the January to March quarter of 2022,
Hmm.
right? But after that, the next 4 quarters, the thing has been sliding. And this quarter, that is the last quarter, Jan to March of 2023, saw the BCA at its lowest in 5 quarters. Right now, that would seem to be a little surprising, given that our economic growth is good compared to advanced economies, that our exports are at the highest ever, right? $450 billion plus, and also the WPI has really come down. CPI is also under control. Apparently the interest rate hikes are working and all that, but there still seem to be concerns because our PCI is based on a survey of 500 CEOs and CFOs, and our businessmen of our country don't seem to be too enthused by what they see around them, right? Which is why this thing is going down, because even while the exports have gone up, we'll have to realize that non-oil exports have actually fallen, right? Non-oil products exports have fallen by 6 to 7%, especially in the last quarter. So that has made an impact. And plus, also, while the interest rate hikes might be actually helping in bringing down the inflation, it is
Hmm.
also causing a rise in the interest rates for borrowers, right? And that is creating a bit of a problem because the transmission of those rates has not yet completed, because it has been a series of rate hikes of almost 250 bps in total.
Yes.
That to be transmitted completely to the last mile always takes a bit of time. So while partially it has transmitted, it has not completely transmitted, which means that the interest rates are likely to go up even more
Yeah.
going forward. So these are certain things that really played down the sentiment of our CEOs in Jan March.
Right, but what is the outlook going forward, right there? If you're saying that, still there is a lot of muted trend when it comes to demand, both domestically, exports as well. Of course, there are the lingering fears of recession that we hear constantly about as well. Despite the fact that you're saying that, we are hearing a whole lot of worldwide reports that India still emerges to be a bright spot when it comes to GDP growth. Then, what does the outlook on the future quarters really looks like?
So to answer that question, I'll just tell you two simple data points that came out of our survey, right? So we asked our respondents, are you planning to downsize your workforce in the next fiscal
Right,
23-24?
right.
46% of the 500 CEOs said yes.
Whoa.
18% said can't say, which means they probably will.
Hmm.
Which means that a high 60% plus of India's CEOs are saying we will have to cut down our workforce. And if you're cutting
Hmm.
down workforce, it's not a sign of growth,
Correct.
right? You can argue that AI aayega to anyway, you'll have to
Sure.
cut job losses, cut jobs, but that is not playing out yet. So this is more about business growth. The second data point is that everybody is saying in terms of what is your biggest worry going forward, right? Now, let's hear this. The biggest worry going forward is inflation, right? Persistent inflation. 43% of our
Yeah.
respondents say persistent inflation because the transmission of those rate hikes are still not complete, and a possible recession in developed countries, which we have been talking about for quite a while. But that worry seems not to have gone, right?
Hmm.
Despite a lot of reports saying that, recession will probably not happen or it will be a very mild one and all that. But people are still
Correct.
worried about it. So even if you look at next quarter, then it's the onset of the monsoon. There has been a lot of talk about El Nino and the fact that the monsoon might be delayed. And if the monsoon is delayed, it impacts the rural economy, it impacts food prices, it impacts everybody, not just rural economy. Then the trickle down effect comes to us also, right? And to businesses.
Sure.
So unfortunately, not much good news from the business confidence side.
Not much good news right there, but there is some good news emerging again from the startup world and from the auto space again. And Rachna, you along with Binu have done that story on Rapido. Now, this company has been in the ire of regulations, but despite that, it has continued to do well. It has mitigated the immediate challenges that it was facing, competed heavily against the strong funded companies like Ola and Uber. How have they been managing to do it all, and does the road ahead look smooth for them?
Definitely not. Rapido is currently also in a very difficult state of affairs given the regulations. The thing with transportation in the country is that it falls under the concurrent list, which means that every state, every union territory get to decide their own policies with respect to taxis, cab, or any hailing services, which is where Rapido's problems originally began with, because they got in tiff with the rickshaw unions or the bike or the whole licensing of bike cabs in different states. So they're definitely in the middle of the storm right now, but the way they're approaching it is actually one state at a time. They dealt with it in Karnataka, they're still dealing with it in Maharashtra, they dealt with it in Delhi, there soon may be new regulations coming in. So road ahead for Rapido also does not seem very straight, but they are definitely unstoppable. They've emerged as the industry leaders of the whole bike taxi industry in the country, at least. And even in the South Asia and the APAC region, they're only on the second or the third spot, which is purely because of how resilient they have been. They started in 2015. Almost bootstrapped. They hardly raised some small angel rounds of funding, and yet they have been going strong. Their policy, the key here lies in their business strategy. With any hailing service, any cab hailing or bike hailing services, you'll see a peak in consumers during office hours, during rush hours, during traffic hours. So what happens between like afternoon hours or the chill hours of the drivers? That's where Rapido has cracked the code, because they not only offer bike hailing services, but they've also emerged as delivery partners for a lot of companies. So
Yeah.
which is what has been working for them, because they have been loyal to their captains, as they like to call their riders and rickshaw drivers. The similar loyalty is coming back to them now. So that's where Rapido has been excelling. But talking about the bike taxi industry in the country right now, because there's no one fixed regulation. There are states like Haryana and Goa that have fixed regulations when it comes to
Yeah.
bike taxis, and they have allowed them. But then again,
Yeah.
there are states like Maharashtra, Karnataka, and Delhi that are still deciding what needs to be done. We, in fact, happened to speak to one of the Rapido captains who was a lady, because one of the biggest struggles that Rapido has been going through is the cultural stigma attached when you ride as a pillion on a bike as a woman. You don't know who's riding the bike. There were also some cases that we heard. To f- so 22% of Rapido's captains are actually women, which is sort of easing lives of us women users. It's easier to pick Rapido now. The whole cultural stigma bit, I happened to speak to one of the lady captains, and she said that she was widowed a couple of years ago. And when she saw Rapido as an employment opportunity, that really changed her life. And now she has two children that she has put through school and college. So Rapido has really been excelling.
Right, heartwarming story right there, but definitely some encouraging signs emerging for the bike, taxi hailing services right there and the industry, despite some speed breaks that we may continue to see, as roadblocks for these companies in the immediate future. But overall, also speaking, there is the confidence that is dipping and AI uncertainty that looms large over all of our lives and various sectors. But definitely, we should keep our hopes high, just like the word that Rachna used, unstoppable. That's how we have to keep our hopes high and look at more opportunities emerging for all of us right there. Well, thank you so much, Alokesh, Rachna, Prerena, for all of your insights onto this wonderful, issue and edition that you both, you all your at Business Today magazine have put together. Just hoping all our viewers also go ahead and grab your copies, because these copies are already out there on the stands. And if there's anything that you really want to understand more about AI, this is the issue that you must go ahead and read. Until then, thank you so much for watching, and do stay tuned on to Business Today TV for a whole lot more coming up on your screens.